James, I'd like to start with the idea of heretics, because you will be accused of being a heretic. You have created, I think, a wonderful film called The Church of Global Warming.
That's right.
And many will latch onto this word. It's heretical, what he's saying, because it goes against the orthodoxy. And I think science is moved forward by heretical thinking. I believe it always has been the real heretics who've moved ideas forward.
Absolutely.
Who go against the orthodoxy. And it's been my interest to interview people like that, mavericks if you like, over the last 20 years in different areas of science. We'll begin by focusing on your title, which I think is very apropos, The Church of Global Warming. Why did you choose this title?
Well, I thought when I was discussing the topic of global warming with some work colleagues, and it just came to my head. Well, it's like a church. You know, it's an orthodoxy, as it is. It's a faith. It's a leap of faith. People believe in global warming, and I would say quite a few of them, maybe the majority, have no idea why, apart from the fact they've been told. So they have faith in a group of scientists, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, which is funded by the United Nations, the UN. They believe in what this panel has said, and religiously believe it with fervor and with orthodoxy. And it's not really what it should be, which is a very controversial scientific topic, worthy of great debate. It's not that at all. It is, we believe this, and if you don't believe it, we'll burn you at the stake. You know, metaphorically, of course. But it is such a strong, emotive topic that it almost is burning at the stake type issue. So I felt it was the parallel, and the euphemism of calling it church is quite apt in this case.
No, I think it's a very, very apt title, because there's going to be a lot of burning at the stake energy coming your way, I'm sure, as this moves through the world, because the fervor is now at a very high level, and there are very high stakes involved.
Absolutely. Very,
very high stakes involved, a lot of money involved in the whole global warming issue. And let's go into how you felt that you were qualified to take on this massive juggernaut of energy, which another word that we've got to be very careful of that continually pops up is there's a scientific consensus that global warming is a fact.
Well, I work for an energy company. I work for a renewable energy company. So we come from a green standpoint. And they have a mechanism in Australia, and even more convincing, stronger emissions trading already occurring in Europe with Gordon Brown. But in Australia there is a mechanism of minor type, a sort of a prequel to emissions trading, and there is energy credits, and we earn renewable energy credits, RECs, as would any other renewable company. So there is money involved, and I work for an energy company. I come from a science background, a biological neuroscience background, but I work for an energy company, and I work in portfolio, risk, and corporate trading. I design models, Monte Carlo simulations, very similar but less ambitious than climate models, but the same sort of concepts of creating simulations and input factors and output factors. So I have a pretty good understanding of how the climate scientists would go about it, although I would never ever claim I could model the environment, which is crazy talk because it's a dynamic, chaotic system. We generally try to model one thing, the future price. And we have some of the best scientists, economists in the world, brought around from the world to help us. And we can't do it very well. I mean, we try, but you know, we always say ourselves a pinch of salt. We're trying to do one factor, the price, let alone trying to determine something phenomenally complex like temperature and global weather systems. And so, so back to consensus. Well, I was told Kevin Rudd and Gordon Brown, Barack Obama, and they're all telling us this exists. And we, as a company, are going to make a lot of money from it because we are green. So I said to my bosses, can I check this up? Because I'm a scientist, I can perhaps understand a bit of it. Instead of just taking it as a carte blanche and accepting this consensus, how about I look into it? And they're like, okay. I started off at realclimate.com, which is the big website which is telling us about global warming, the Climate Research Unit, and the Hadley Centre in the UK, which were Hadley Centre was the first institution to tell us about global warming. So the first stop I hit when I type in global warming is telling me about why there's global warming. So, oh, interesting, okay. But I was like, where is the evidence? I mean, told, where's the evidence? It didn't take very long until I got to the skeptical websites on the web, which are prolific all over the place, and scientific, and language of science, not language of heretics, not language of, you know, burn them at the stake and this is rubbish, you must believe. It's, we are looking at the science, these skeptical websites are looking at the science and saying, is this correct or is this correct? And I thought, wait a second, I've just been bombarded with evidence telling me the major factors that influence temperature, which are not surprising, they've been well known for 400 years. William Herschel in the early 1800s correlated sunspots to wheat prices. So this is the guy who discovered Uranus. He's a very famous astronomer. And so this is all well-known science and has been backed up with ocean circulation and solar sunspots. And it's all understandable and verifiable and observable. And there was nothing, there was literally nothing apart from climate models, which are computer models. And as a person who works with computer models, I'm like very skeptical about the validity of them. And so I thought, it just happened very rapidly. I just became skeptical. I just thought, where's the evidence? And I looked for the evidence and I couldn't find any. And so I quickly, because I make movies and I look into these sort of things, I quickly took this as a personal project of mine. So I've been doing this since about 2007, and there was the movie The Great Global Warming Swindle came out with Martin Durkin, which is an awesome movie, which created some ripples, far less notice among people than it deserved. It was shown here in Australia, and then the ABC with Tony Jones spent the next couple of hours trying to rip it apart. So they were like, oh yes, we are a balanced news, channel, and then they ripped it apart and say, oh, well, this is what some people believe, but no one really believes it. And that was as close as it ever got to being a balanced discussion. There's never been a balanced discussion. And so once I was looking personally at the evidence, and then I saw The Great Global Warming Swindle, and I started to see all these world-famous climate scientists telling from their own, the horse's mouth, from their own words, that, we are really doubting it very much. Then, so I have been sort of contrary to the prevailing wind for at least since then. It's about 2-3 years now.
Yes, that was an excellent documentary. Let's get back to this very important question of computer modeling, because I think one of the topics that was brought up in the Great Global Warming Swindle was computer simulation of a inert system, a non-living system, maybe to a certain extent a useful way. We're certainly not saying that it's not useful if the system is inert, but you mentioned earlier a chaotic system, a living chaotic system.
Absolutely.
You were talking about how you use models in your own work, which is far less dynamic, certainly not living in the same way that the Earth is living and breathing and moving, as some people believe. So talk a little bit about the climate modeling using computer simulation, its limitations, and why you would doubt some of its data.
Well, the rule of science and great institutions in Victorian times which helped create the British Empire was, why did the British Empire exist over any other empire? Well, important philosophical and social changes occurred, and one of them, which is very controversial in these days, and we come to a lot of the whole ClimateGate situation, which is to do with maybe some of the fraud that's going on, is based around the Royal Society. The Royal Society of Britain is the top British scientists, and it is a union together, and it's a forum in which they can talk about evidence. And the Royal Society have always said that you have to be able to disclose your data. If you want to be a part of our team, and this is the basic principle of all science. No science could exist, no field of evidence can exist, unless you propose a hypothesis, and then the next guy who may or may not agree with you can at least see where you're coming from and make it a replicable, experiment.